Hello everyone, I am Casey the Gamer, and it is time for another game review. Do you remember Konami? Do you remember when Konami used to make games? Well, today we're taking a look at one of their classics, Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo. Why are we starting with this one? Well, it's one of my favorites, and it's one that I can actually beat. So yeah. Super Castlevania 4 was released on October 31st, 1991 in Japan, and December 4th, 1991 in North America. This is another game that I grew up with. I had both an NES and a Super Nintendo, and owned both the original Castlevania and this one, and I played them both a lot. I never made a lot of progress in either one, but I did make more progress in this one, and I have managed to beat it several times now. Still haven't beaten the original. Yet. But Super Castlevania 4 is great fun and one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. Now, let's take a closer look at Simon Belmont's 16-bit Super Nintendo adventure through Dracula's castle. Every 100 years, the forces of good start to weaken, allowing the power of Dracula to revive itself. Dracula and his dark forces have returned, and it is now up to Simon Belmont to put a stop to them. The Belmont clan have fought Dracula many times in the past, and it is once again time. Simon sets off with his trusty whip, the Vampire Killer, and heads towards Dracula's castle. Along the way, Simon battles all manner of creatures, including skeletons, bats, skeleton knights, and even Medusa herself, and a twin-headed serpent before even entering the castle. Upon entering the castle, Simon faces even more deadly foes, including ghosts, knights, Frankenstein's monster, the mummy, and several others before coming face to face with Dracula's right-hand man, Death. Simon then battles Death to the death. Once Death is defeated, the way to Dracula is open. Simon faces Dracula in an epic battle. Simon finally manages to defeat Dracula and escape the castle and watches as it crumbles. The world is safe from Dracula. For now. Super Castlevania 4 features the classic Castlevania formula. As in, it isn't a Metroidvania with a ton of weapons and exploration and RPG elements. This is the classic action platformer style. You play as Simon Belmont with his Vampire Killer whip and a handful of sub-weapons as you take on 11 crazy stages. Speaking of the classic formula, I happen to think this game handles it the best. It's got everything from the NES games and then some. One of the best additions is being able to whip in 8 directions. I believe this is one of the only Castlevania games to do that, if not the only one. In addition to whipping in 8 directions, you can also do this little flaily type motion with the whip. It can be pretty useful sometimes. Your main weapon in this game is the Vampire Killer whip. It can be upgraded twice. The first upgrade makes it a chain whip, which is more powerful than the standard leather whip. The second upgrade increases the length of your whip, which is very useful. If you die, you do lose the upgrades and have to obtain them again. As mentioned earlier, there are a handful of sub-weapons in this game. There is the dagger, which is thrown out straight ahead of you and is pretty fast. The axe is a little bit slower, but it is thrown in an arc, which can be very useful. Next up is the holy water, which gets thrown on the ground and burns everything in its path. Does pretty decent damage. And next we have probably the most preferred sub-weapon, at least for me, the boomerang cross. You throw it out and it goes across the screen and it comes back to you. Very useful for hitting enemies multiple times. The final sub-weapon is the watch, which will freeze enemies. Also pretty useful in certain areas. Sub-weapons can be upgraded slightly. you can obtain the double and triple shot upgrades, which allow you to throw out 2 and then 3 of your current sub-weapon. These can sometimes be found in breakable walls or in the candles. Other pickups in this game include the meat, or wall meat, because you typically find it by breaking the walls, and sometimes in the candles as well. But yeah, it's wall meat. The meat will refill your health. There are small hearts and large hearts, and these are used as ammo for your sub-weapons. Still, one of the weirdest things in Castlevania after all these years, that hearts equals weapon ammo. There's also a potion that makes you invincible for a limited time, and there's also a rosary item that destroys all enemies on the screen at the time. You can also get money bags, which add points to your score. Get enough points, and you get a 1-up. The basic gameplay involves running and jumping through the level, killing enemies with your whip while dealing with all manner of obstacles, such as bottomless pits, spikes, disappearing platforms, platforms that flip over when you jump on them, which then throw you into a bottomless pit. And then of course there is the classic Castlevania knockback. When you get hit by an enemy, you are thrown backwards, which usually sends you into, you guessed it, a bottomless pit. In certain areas, there are these things that you can latch onto with your whip to swing over bottomless pits and get to the other side. Sometimes the enemies are placed on the other side, so be careful. These aren't just near bottomless pits though. There are some where if you swing across and make it, you'll be rewarded with health, a sub-weapon, hearts, sacks of money, or even double or triple shot upgrades. As I stated earlier, there are 11 levels in this game. 11 levels full of crazy enemies and platforming to give Simon Belmont plenty of time to whip it good. The game starts out pretty straightforward and the levels aren't too hard, but the further into the game you get, the crazier things get. I'd say probably about the first 5 or 6 levels, the game kinda eases you into it, and then things really ramp up for the later half, especially in the clock tower, naturally, and then the final level after that. Throughout your journey, you battle several crazy boss monsters, including some classic horror movie monsters. You battle the likes of Rodaine, a skeletal lance-wielding horseman, Medusa, the Orphic Vipers, a Golem, dancing specters, Sir Dracula, who is a giant knight with multiple weapons, Frankenstein's monster, a giant bat made out of gold, and Akmodin II, or the Mummy. And getting through all of that brings you to the final stage. The final stage is a marathon of insane platforming and 4 boss fights. Once you make the climb up, you battle Slagra, who's pretty tough. Once Slagra is defeated, you climb up further and fight Gaibon, who is significantly easier. Climb up even further, and you must have a duel with Death. Death can be a pain, as expected, but he is much easier than his NES counterpart, that's for sure. Once Death has been dealt with, it's time for the final battle with the one and only Dracula. Dracula has a few phases, but thankfully only 1 health bar in this game, as opposed to others where he has multiple transformations and health bars. Keep your wits about you, and destroy this vile creature of the night once and for all. Super Castlevania 4 can be a little hit or miss with its checkpoints. Sometimes I felt like they were pretty forgiving, and other times I couldn't believe how far back I got sent. The best example of how forgiving it can be is on the final stage. There are checkpoints before every boss, even if you game over, which is very helpful. And speaking of helpful, once you get past Death and you're outside Dracula's boss room, there are invisible platforms for you to jump on. Go all the way to the left and just stand there. You'll be given max health, max hearts, a fully upgraded whip, the boomerang cross, and the double and triple shot. Really nice of them to fully load you up for the final fight with Dracula. And to cap this section off, the gameplay is incredibly satisfying. It is so much fun defeating the enemies and the bosses with your whip and sub-weapons. And it's great when you finally get past some of the more difficult platforming sections and bottomless pits. The boss fights are all also pretty fun. Most of them can be brute forced, but just be careful because the bosses can brute force you right back. But yeah, excellent gameplay and a perfect evolution of the classic formula. Super Castlevania 4 features 16-bit pixel art graphics, and they look fantastic. All the character sprites and backgrounds are absolutely gorgeous. The sound effects are also great. I really love the sound the upgraded whip makes when you use it, and just all the other sounds in this game. They're like pure nostalgia for me. So good. Castlevania is another franchise that is typically known for having amazing music, and Super Castlevania 4 is definitely among some of the best the franchise has to offer. From the haunting music on the title screen, and the music that plays while explaining the story, to the epic theme of Simon Belmont himself. Every song in this game is perfect. One of my favorite game soundtracks of all time. Super Castlevania 4 is an amazing game. One of my all-time favorite Super Nintendo games. It looks and sounds amazing, and despite some of the harder parts, is an absolute blast to play. Like I said at the start, I played this one and the original a lot growing up, and as difficult as they can be, they made me Castlevania fans. And again, to me, this one is the best of the classic formula. It took what worked and added to it. It did still keep the knockback and the bottomless pits and all that, but that kind of comes with the territory. You gotta have some obstacles in your games. And I love the horror setting. Like, it's not a scary game by any means, but it brings so many horror elements and monsters together, and that's just so cool. Replaying this again does make me a little bit sad because Konami doesn't make games anymore and hasn't done anything with their franchises. They had so many good franchises. I would love a new Castlevania. So much. As long as it's good. Anyway, I do plan to eventually cover the NES series. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. I'm coming for you, NES Castlevania. We have unfinished business. But yeah, this game's great. I love it to death, and I highly recommend playing it. Also, I recommend checking out the Castlevania anime. It's amazing. It is so good. So good. So good. It's so good. I love Castlevania. Castlevania is awesome. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And if you want to see more of me, you can catch me streaming all kinds of games over on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/CaseyTheGamer91. And you can find the link for that in the description below. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to catch you next time. Peace out. Oh, and remember, after you defeat a boss, strike a pose.